Alright, crew. This is the moment I have been preparing you for. The rest is up to you. Now, I know it's been a tough road, and I couldn't save everyone, but I feel like I've given you the best tools I can to prepare you for the onslaught that is coming. Fusions. I have given new life into you, given you and your materials the chance to really be seen as just more than just weak vanillas going -3 in card advantage. I mean, being able to combine your typing and attributes to take advantage of field synergies and equips, although short-lived, I'm proud of what you've done, and you brought life into a horrible format. We're just scratching the surface of Yugi and Kaiba, and that's because of you. Metalmorphs! A unique kind of fusion summoning. I mean, dropping down on an opponent with built-in protection is just beautiful in early Yu-Gi-Oh! And hey, you might actually get to see some competitive play. Time Wizards! How does it feel not being a liar? You do what the anime told you to do. Tunes! I know you got the shaft early on. And I know your support gets better. But I am proud of what you've become. You feel really toony right now. Yeah. Fire Princess and gang. You guys are much more terrifying than I thought, but wow. Just burn, baby, burn. Destiny Board. Why did we buff you again? Why would I ever buff a stall deck? It's so boring. I mean, yeah, you're good. You did it. You do what you need to do. And you guys. Magicians. Amazons. Guardians. Dark Scorpions. Archfiends. And my Gate Guardians. I am so proud of the work you put in. You are really solid, fun, unique decks that will have no doubt take down the looming threat. It approaches. March 2004 is almost here. Formations! Get your decks! Formations! Welcome to Fixing Yu-Gi-Oh!, where I prepare a bunch of common cards and bad archetypes for the onslaught that they will no doubt face this guy. Chaos Emperor Dragon. And if they survive that, they will have to contend with this guy, Blackluster Soldier. And if they still somehow manage to still be alive, then they got Chaos Orc, Tribe Infecting, Magical Scientist, Air Knight Parashath. Yeah, good luck, guys. I did what I could. Chaos Emperor Dragon is the most broken card, in my opinion, that has ever been printed, especially for how early in Yu-Gi-Oh! This card came out. There was just nothing else like it. Anything with this powerful of an effect would have had like 8 different hoops to jump through at this point. Before the errata, people would just like normal summon Sangan, banish 2 cards from my graveyard, nuke the board, nuke your hand, nuke my hand, Sangan effect go off, get Yatagarasu, normal summon Yatagarasu, I win, you can't do anything. Like that lock just destroyed the meta, and Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole, OG Yu-Gi-Oh! Old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Is gone, GOAT format is in, and it is run by the Emperor Chaos Dragon. Now, eventually, Chaos Emperor Dragon did get an errata, and honestly, the errata fixed this card. Playing a lot of different progression series and just closed format during this time, with these errata changes, I will say it is much healthier for the game, and I'm still putting this card in my deck with the current erratas, but it is by no means what feels like a broken card anymore because of that errata. What really made this card broken was the fact that you got to play a bunch of different card effects before you could do this. Now you basically have to go main phase 1, Chaos Emperor Dragon, nuke the field, nuke the hand, top deck war here on out. So it doesn't feel like nearly as broken. It's still good, and anybody who says this card wouldn't be good in 2004 is insane with this current errata, because it is very good, and I still win a lot of games with this card. Now, granted, yes, it is not as good as the broken thing that was originally printed, but is that really a bad thing? Especially if you're playing these older formats. I did not get to play competitive GOAT format when I was a kid. I just didn't have the money or cards and just wasn't that great. But playing this format, I loved GOAT format as an adult. I really wish I would have gotten to experience full on CED early on, but I have played with it and this is so fun. I love GOAT format. It's probably my second favorite format in Yu-Gi-Oh! I think Edison does beat it slightly. Yugi Kaiba is actually my third place, and it's not that far from behind GOAT. I just really like the simplicity of normal summon and having 18 and 1700 attack monsters running rampant on the meta. It just makes me like relive that childhood deck building feeling again. So I kind of showed it in our last episode how this format is basically just chaos control. It's pretty much the only viable deck in OG Yu-Gi-Oh! But my question is, with all the changes that we've implemented, would it still win the legendary April 2004 World Championship? So this episode is going to be a bit different from others. Invasion of Chaos does have plenty of cards that we could fix, but for the most part, they're all just underused because of how strong Chaos is, not necessarily because a lot of them are just bad cards. Chaos was just so insanely good that nothing could really compete with it. Honestly, some of these cards aren't bad if you're playing an Aqua deck, or even you could do some cool things with insects and plants in this as well, with some of the previous support that we've gotten. And I'm looking to showcase that off next time. I promise next week we're going to get into some of the other stuff, but in reality, unless I'm doing a full retrain on these cards, Chaos is going to win anyways. So there's no point of going full on into those. And I don't really just want to skyrocket buff every one of these cards, but I do want to kind of showcase some of these cards and just a few things that we could have done to make it more of a casual play deck for other people who weren't able to afford Chaos Emperor Dragon or just the playset of Chaos Sorks that would be running around. So what I'm really going to try and show off today is some quick duels and highlights with a review of how the decks competed. We won't show full matches due to time, but just to kind of get some insight and see how good some of our decks would actually stand up against full-powered Chaos in April 2004. I am not touching anything that has been made in Invasion of Chaos for this video, but we are going to be building with everything up to Invasion of Chaos. So we're basically going to be able to see Magicians, Amazons kind of at their full power before Invasion of Chaos comes out. And I want to see how good of a deck we can really build to face off against the World Championship deck for Yu-Gi-Oh! 2004. This is the first place World Championship 2004 deck list, and it is terrifying looking compared to some of my custom decks. Uh, we are at the disadvantage of playing these custom decks because we are only playing up to Invasion of Chaos, so there are a few cards that we won't be able to get. So I won't be able to splash in BLS or Chaos Emperor Dragon because we want to test to see how good things are and then how badly they get power spiked over by playing CED and BLS, because that is going to basically overrun the format. So I just want to kind of use this to kind of showcase how powerful and how much more power crept these decks are. But this is the first place World Championship deck of 2004. They have one BLS, one CED, one Jinzo, double Kaiku, one Breaker, one Tribe Infecting Virus, triple DD Warrior Lady, one Shining Angel, one Witch, one Sangan, one Magical Scientist, dual Magician of Faith, need a breath, one Sinister Serpent, one Confiscation. In the main deck, only one creature swap, one Dark Hole, one Graceful Charity, one Heavy Storm, one Monster Reborn, one Nobleman, they have another Noble in the side deck, one Pot of Greed, one Smashing Ground, no, none in the side deck for that one Forceful Sentry, triple MST, double Scapegoat, one Mirage of Nightmare, which is a perfect target for that triple MST, one Premature Burial, one Snatch Steal, and then for the trap lineup, Mirror Force, Ring of Destruction, double Torrential, which I don't know why this card has not been banned, or not banned, limited to one, but whatever, and one Call of the Haunted. That is a terrifying deck, and will get over, like, the deck has so many options to get over different problem cards. So you're going to get to see them in some of these duels, and it is terrifying how strong some of these decks are. And let's see how good our builds and decks can actually stand up to this. So, Gate Guardians, they fared better than I thought they would. I was never really able to get out the big Gate Guardian, and I felt like I built this deck. If I built this deck better, it could compete as a more of like a Monarch like deck, kind of utilizing the Acolytes as tribute fodder. Well, until King of the Swamp comes out, I don't think we can consistently bring out our fusion at this point. In a lot of the games, I would get, hey, I got the 3 Guardians in hand, but I don't have polymerization. Or, hey, I got 2 of the Gate Guardians, polymerization, or something. Like, I was just never able to get to all my pieces fast enough to compete against the Chaos player. A lot of these duels were about survival, and Labyrinth Wall put in so much work in our fields and in protecting life points against the Chaos player, and the Chaos player had to be smart with how they really utilized their removal, or if it was even worth utilizing it and using a MST on their field spell. There was a point where the Chaos player discarded like 12 cards off of Mirage of Nightmare because they used an early MST, and they played Mirage of Nightmare and just couldn't. They just kept discarding their hand constantly, and it ended up being a game lost because the Guardians were able to just overrun that and really take advantage of it. Also, the Gate Guardian's key components are to protect against key removal cards, but the Chaos player makes triple DD Warrior Lady and creature swap, so like those directly counter the Gate Guardians. So a lot of the time, the Gate Guardians, what they did is they hit the field and well, they got creature swapped around, or DD Warrior Lady just banishes them, which I'm only playing 1 copy of these Gate Guardians, which I think was a big miss. I think they should be at 2, especially if I was focused on more tribute fodder kind of thing. But overall, the Gate Guardian player just kind of got overrun. I am pretty impressed of how the fields worked out. It really put in a lot of work, but overall, Gate Guardians just couldn't compete against Chaos. We did manage to win 2 games out of 6, but it was really thanks to just playing the best power cards at this right time versus the Gate Guardian build. Chaos was definitely the better build. I just kind of got. I feel like at times I got lucky with my creature swaps when I got Monster Reborn, and I just kind of got the right cards on those 2 wins. Where one of the games, Chaos actually bricked, which was the first time in any of our games any of them had bricked. And because of that, Gate Guardian were able to kind of sweep them easily. I don't have that game, unfortunately. So Amazons, they don't really benefit that much through Invasion of Chaos, although Gigantus could probably see some competitive play with them. Smashing Ground and Compulsor are just good staples that they would play, but not much is actually going into the core of the deck. They did not stand a chance in game 1, and it made me very nervous to really see, oh crap, did I mess up with these decks? But games 2, 3, and so on, they kind of put on a good show. As soon as you get 2 Amazons on the field, it does become difficult for the Chaos player to kind of keep up because it does start putting out a big snowball effect for these cards. But the Amazons really struggled was the kill power, and since they don't have their queen yet to push out the big damage, the Chaos players just can plop down big CED or BLS, and with priority being a thing, Amazonesses can't really stop CED, and it just didn't go well for them. I do feel like there is some competitive nature with Amazons here, and the games were actually good until CED or BLS got dropped down on Amazons, and then at that point it was a blowout because they just didn't have anything they could really use to protect themselves from there. So I think Amazons are competitive to the generic field monsters, such as like the Breakers, the Kaikus, everything that Chaos Player is playing, and they can compete against that, but they just don't have the boss power or the kill potential. And like they ended up winning 1 out of 6 games, and 4 of those games were directly caused by Chaos Emperor Dragon or BLS, where they just couldn't survive that onslaught when they hit the field. So I don't know if it was up to luck or what. I felt like the Amazon build was pretty good. The games felt competitive until the boss monsters were dropped down, and then it was a blowout. So I think Amazons are just missing their boss monsters to be competitive in this format. Just straight up Guardians. This was one of the more interesting games as I 100% couldn't think of a build or how to really just make this deck work. My initial theory was I had to play some powerful cards like Regeki Break and Magic Jammer that would allow me to discard my weapon counts because they say when they are sent from hand, not necessarily discarded, then I would get my searches. But ultimately, I decided against it and tried to focus more on playing more of a solid GOAT format kind of staples with them to try and sink a few of the Guardian cards in. So I didn't go full Guardians. I went Guardians with Guardian support engine kind of thing. Um, Guardian Seal is hands down the deck's MVP, which really just allowed you to pop cards by sending equips, and it could kind of fight off like the Tribe Infecting Virus and DD Warrior Lady and a couple of those other cards. But we had to play some good cards like normals like Kaiku and Breaker to help fight against the chaos, and it was very impactful. There was a duel where Mirage of Nightmare went off by discarding two of the weapons, and I got to add back two monster from deck. But ultimately, this deck just tried to be more control and it competed with the Chaos build, which was just overall better because we weren't clogging up all these extra equip cards. I did have a lot of fun with Guardians, and I think there's something there, and a better deck builder can probably beat Chaos pretty easily, I think. It was just such a fun deck to play. It's just Chaos did everything Guardians did, but just more consistent. This deck was not very consistent, and ultimately, I think that's the biggest downfall. It's fun, but not consistent. Unfortunately, they underperformed and probably the worst out of any of them, only kind of winning the one game out of six. Whereas at least Amazon's, they felt like it was competitive. There was more blowouts when I was playing Guardians because I was bricking, because I just had equips or I just had monsters and I couldn't get their effects really rolling. The Archfiends, these guys were probably my like favorite to play. They were the most fun. A lot of strong contenders against Chaos. The randomness was kind of annoying both for me and my opponent to kind of keep track of, as switching between those protections were pretty funny. We ended up keeping track with counters, just putting, oh, 6 tokens, so now he's protected against battle, and so on. Like things like that to kind of help keep track, and then just having to remove them at the beginning and end phase. But being able to spam out King felt really good. But the individual monsters all felt very weak, because they are. Uh, the name of this deck is Get Out King and playing the new Archfiend Bishop, which was cool to kind of discard in your hand and getting to special summon King again. Queen and Pawn were very meh, but as a pure Archfiend deck, it was fun to play. I opted in to play Berserk Dragon, which I thought was cool, but it's definitely not optimal, and I wouldn't recommend it in this deck, actually, after kind of considering it. But they did win 2 out of 6 games, but none of the games felt like it was a real blowout. It was a solid back and forth for most of the time, and I think with some deck manipulation, they would really compete very well. So Magicians, having a slightly better result with the fusion card than Gate Guardians. I did manage to bring out Paladin once, thanks to the spell counter removal stuff, which was convenient. But playing Dark Magician and Buster Blader proved pretty bad with a lot of dead cards, such as DNA Surgery, not really countering anything Chaos has that would really hurt them. So I sided them out and put in more staples for the time, and the deck played better, but I felt like a dragon spellcaster hybrid deck was really what was going to be needed for the potential of like Buster Blader, because there are some good dragons that I probably could have played with it. But I ended up trying to just go all in with magicians, and I think the biggest miss with this was I just didn't build this deck to an optimal standpoint. So I don't think it's fair, but we're going to just go off of my experience, just trying to play pure magicians in this format. The basic magician stuff was okay. Again, I just the deck building really held me back, but I did get some fun plays with Magical Library and the new Gather Your Mind, which was really cool, but not that impactful. Ultimately, the counters just didn't really help that much because I took out the BLS stuff Yeah, so it kind of went hand in hand with each other where it just wasn't syncing up to what I thought I could do in deck building. I wish I would have tested this one a little bit more. I think there could have been better potential there, but Magicians just couldn't stand up and lost all 6 games. Um, so I, I don't know. I like at this point I'm starting to feel discouraged. I'm like, oh crap! Like all these decks that I've been building, like was this it? Like our archetypes are not just failing, but they're mostly getting slaughtered. And at this point, I thought, oh god, Chaos is just too strong. I don't think anything I made is going to really stop them. Um, that's at least until we played our next type. There was one deck that all we did was a few minor changes that not only competed but won. So, Dark Scorpions. We basically changed 2 cards from the deck. And for the record, we ran a pretty pure Dark Scorpions deck with some warrior support, just that were good cards. But these guys gave us so much value, and they competed and beat Chaos. The fusion was much more impactful because of the stat line, and being able to get out all the Dark Scorpion effects from the graveyard was the most impactful difference that this really made. So putting out like a 2K beater that now gets Don Zalug's effect was pretty good. And a lot of fun too, because you're just getting these cards in your graveyard. But I never felt like I was really struggling to get hand advantage because I was constantly discarding other people's cards and stuff like that. Now, keep in mind, Don Zalug has the name change of Dark Scorpion Don Zalug in our format, so he is searchable with Monet of Thorns, which was, again, so small, but it just made such a big impact. This guy being able to be searched not only from, like, Rhoda, not only from Mystic Tomato, but from this other Dark Scorpion card. Also, mustering of the Dark Scorpions change to the graveyard was amazing, and I knew it was going to be strong, but I just did not know the impact it was really going to make. However, there was never a point where I did that where I wasn't already in a solid winning position. This card never won me the game by itself. It did help me get out some combos with some of the other to kind of get my field presence a little bit set up, but it didn't actually outrightly win me the game at any point. I had to play. I ended up actually doing a tribute for Don Zalug, or I tributed off Don Zalug, got out Gorg as the tribute summoned over it, and then because I had called a haunted, I brought out Don's again, but I had to kind of do this in this strange order so that way I can get Gorg's effect to bounce. I don't remember what was on the field, but it played out really well, and I was super happy about how it worked out, and it actually won me the game for one of those. So the deck was very consistent. All the monsters were basically searchable with Tomato, Witch, Sangan, Rhoda, and they had to rely a little bit more on spells and traps, but they had strong effects and they beat Chaos 4 games out of 6. So 5 decks and one managed to with the big W. And funny enough, it was just the one I did the least amount of changes to, which shows Konami how close they were to really getting them right. This extra fusion was hands down the MVP. And the flexibility to send off 2 or 3 cards just to get him statted up was great, as long as he didn't run into Torrential, which cost me a game. So that's how they fared. Kind of unsurprising, as the power creep was inevitable, which all the decks did what they kind of needed to do. I wish I would have been able to get Big Great Guardian out, and I think in early Yu-Gi-Oh! It's definitely possible. The deck felt fast. I just didn't get Poly. So if the game was slower, if I was playing this during Metal Raiders, then I think that Gate Guardians would have been able to get out the big Gate Guardian more consistently. But everybody did what I needed it to do. Everybody felt fun. None of the cards, like they all had their own themes. All the decks felt like I was playing something different, which I think is the most important because Yu-Gi-Oh is about archetypes. It didn't start that way, but in the show, we got our fish deck, we got our bug deck, and I know it's supposed to be like a magic clone in the early stages, but it missed out. It could have been more than that, and I think the archetypes really giving them such a unique playstyle is what makes Yu-Gi-Oh and gives Yu-Gi-Oh its identity. And honestly, this is just all about discussion. We are doing this as a perspective of game designs, and we have hindsight on our side. Thank you all for the subscriptions and everything. You guys have been watching me every week. Appreciate the love. Take care, guys.